I decided the only thing better than being me was getting paid to be me. You can't fight the moonlight, babe. Followed by Wallace looking up at the constellations. He's a constellation in the sky, and then the air horns. Don't need money, don't need fame, don't need no credit card to ride this train.
We're talking Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, episodes 5 and 6, Lights, Camera, Sparks, and Who Did It? I am Vactor, here in the Vactor-Verse. Thank you for joining us, everyone. And he is Shoff, the man whose shirt says sex. Don't wipe your screens. That's what it says. And yes, his dad's name is Bob. Yes, we know.
Yes,
Shoff,
yes,
how
yes.
you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, you're Vactor, I'm Shoff, but together we are Sex Bob. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Woo! We did it, Shoff. We're on the 5th and 6th episodes, the penultimate episodes on our reviews, because we're doing 2 at a time. Next week, we're going to do 7 and 8. Unfortunately, the last of the episodes, but we'll get to that next week. Shoff, what are you thinking at this point in the season, or in the series, I should say, because I don't think there's going to be a season 2. What are you thinking at this point?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I feel like I've been watching an exceptional amount of animated stuff lately.
Ooh.
And I blame you. You for it.
A fact I'm very proud of. And we got What If Season 2 coming up, Shoff. More animated goodness.
God, what I wouldn't give to see a real person in real life.
I can't wait to talk more animation with Shoff, because I want to open up Shoff's horizon. I want Shoff to earn the power of animation. I love animated stuff, and you should too, Shoff.
I love your shirt, by the way.
Thank you. That was one of my favorite moments in both the book and in the movie.
Scott earned the power of love.
Yeah.
Don't need money, don't need fame, don't need no credit card to ride this train. It's strong and it's sudden. It can be cool sometimes, but it might just save your life. They say that only love.
That's the power of Shoff right there, everybody. You know what's crazy? It's been a month since these episodes released. How time has flown, Shoff.
I know.
And the time that has gone by. Obviously, I talked about it on previous episodes. This is one of my favorite things that has been released in 2023. So I'm very happy to be talking to you, Shoff, about this, and to be talking to all of our faithful friends out there in YouTube and podcast land. But the first episode, Lights, Camera, Sparks. What did you think, Shoff? I'm curious to get your take on this specific episode.
It was fantastic. It was very funny. I like the presentation as a documentary of a film that just didn't work and didn't last. It didn't happen. The Weird Al intro, I really dug. Not that it was anywhere near the same thing, but it's not the first time that Weird Al has started a movie before. I'm thinking of Spy Hard. Have you seen Spy Hard?
Dang, that sounds
Leslie
familiar.
Nielsen sort of James Bond-esque film.
Man, maybe I watched it one time.
Weird Al starts the movie with his Spy Hard song. It's the theme to Spy Hard. You've got to spy hard. And then he sings this really high note, and then his head explodes. And I just remember laughing really hard, and having his voice be the intro of this episode just made me think of Spy Hard. So.
Oh, nice. Well, that is great, Shoff.
But yeah, it was the format was really cool. The director being Edgar Wrong, that was funny. I mean, it was so like a real easy joke to make, but a really fun joke to do. So I appreciate it.
That is fantastic. And did you see who the voice the voice talent was for the Edgar Wrong?
I wondered if it was actually going to be Edgar Wright, but
that's what I was. Yeah, I was wondering that too. It was Kids in the Hall actor. If you're a fan of Kids in the Hall, everyone, I don't know his name, and I'm trying to pull it up, and Kids in Halloween Costumes came up for some strange reason. Kevin McDonald. Kevin McDonald was the actor, and he's been in a ton of stuff. So it was fun to have him. And we talked about it in previous episodes. The cast in this has been just as great as the cast in the movie because a lot of them are coming back. But even all these little roles that we've gotten, all these little cameo appearances, including, like you said, Weird Al at the beginning, they just did another fantastic job casting this. And we talked about that in Invincible, Shoff, another animated
It's true.
property that we
That's what I
talked
mean.
about.
I feel like I want to know what real people look like.
We did it. We did it, everybody.
They're like,
Shoff
go
is seeing
outside.
sparks.
The listeners
This
are
is
like, go outside, touch some grass. Shoff.
This is fantastic.
A
But this
standout
one,
quote for me in this episode was Wallace Wells being interviewed and saying, "I decided the only thing better than being me was getting paid to be me." I'm like, man, he's got it figured out. Wallace Wells is my spirit animal. This guy is irresistible. Irresistible.
This episode showed you another one where that character with Wallace Wells has so much more to do than he had in the live action and even in the comics. But him and young Neil, getting to see young Neil be this screenwriter, because he was always in the background and like he was playing video games and he wanted to be in the band, but this one really kind of gives you more of his backstory, like what he wants and what he aspires to out of life. So I like that. I like getting to know more about all of these characters. And that's what I like about this whole thing being not a direct adaptation of the comics and of the movie. This is something different, and we're getting more of each one of these characters' backstories. So I'm loving that, Shaw.
Yeah. A question for you.
Yes.
Do you know if the voice of Steven Stills in this show is the same guy who played him in the movie?
Yes.
Because it doesn't
let me
sound
look up his
like
name
at all.
He is like 10 years older, and I think we talked about that with what's her name from Obi-Wan. I'm not Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's wife. And I'm blanking on her name now because I'm looking up Steven Stills.
Mary Winstead or Mary.
Yes, Elizabeth
Winstead. Yeah.
Yes, Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Sorry, she sounds the same, and a lot of these actors do sound the same. But we do have to realize that the passage of time. It has been over 10 years since the movie came out.
And Knives Chow, same thing. Like she doesn't.
Yes,
she sounds like she's doing an impression of herself more than she's doing the voice. So maybe her voice changed a lot too. But
Mark Allen Weber is his name. So yes, he is playing Steven Stills again.
Okay. Yeah, that's the only voice that's been the most I guess unlike what I remember, but it could just be my memory playing tricks on me too. So but to me it just, and maybe it's also because he was such a kind of a nothing character in the movie. Like there wasn't much for him to do other than sing, like, and the singing wasn't like great singing voices or anything like that either. But yeah, this episode primarily was, the big focus was on Todd Ingram and his vegan powers, and also realizing something about himself that he didn't know, and that's that he prefers hot dog to taco. And I guess, you know, when you're around Wallace Wells, all bets are off. You might think you're one thing and find out you're something else.
That I always find that hilarious. Like, and we talked about why do all these women like Scott? I feel like with Wallace Wells, the same thing. Like, why do all these men go crazy over Wallace? Why is everyone attracted to him? He's that same thing that Scott has. He's something about him is just irresistible. I love Kieran Culkin playing him as well.
Word of 2023, Riz. Wallace Wells has got the Riz.
Yes. So that has been fantastic. What do you think about all of the kind of the documentary style of the talking heads and the interview thing that they did
was great
in this?
Yeah, that was a nice way to unpack it, because it allowed for people to be more introspective and show a side that we don't normally see, because then you're seeing sort of the facade breakdown as well, which is what happens in this in a lot of ways. So yeah, I loved it. And it shows how much of an idiot Todd is. Like, I'm Scott Pilgrim, you know, like it's just like every time.
Yeah, that was great.
But the lines in the lines in the trailer bit that was done a few times throughout the episode, that cracked me up. I was laughing so hard. You want to go run lines in my trailer? Because you know, it's funny. Just a little bit of like insight in the, like, when I was doing like community theater and stuff, oftentimes, many of the shows that I did, I was being cast as one of the major leads in the show, and a lot of times these shows had like on-screen kissing, like it was a romance, and like we were pretending to be like into each other and stuff, and there would be times where we'd be like rehearsing a kiss, and so like I'm thinking to myself, lines in my trailer, like if I was like an actor, like there'd be like practicing lines in your trailer, you know what I'm saying? Get a little hot in here, pain in the glavin. So yeah, but what happens in the trailer stays in the trailer. That's the truth. You can't fight the moonlight, babe.
Shoff has had the Riz for over 10 years, and he doesn't want to see it. But look, all of these stories are coming out, Shoff, and you do have it. Look, I told you. I also love the fight scene. Again, there's been some great action and fighting in this series, and this one had no exception. There was just some more stuff that, even though the live action movie had great fight scenes, I give credit to Edgar Wright. Like all of the fight sequences, I was like, man, this is crazy how good this looks for actors that I didn't associate with fighting. But I thought they did some great
and very
stunt work in
inventive,
that.
always super
Yep.
inventive. They use the medium of animation to their advantage and do things that they can't do in live action the same way. So
Yeah.
favorite line is, "You can't fight the moonlight, babe," followed by Wallace looking up at the constellations. You know, he's a constellation in the sky, and then the air horns. Hilarious.
Yes.
Oh,
and then we got some more Matthew Patel at the end of this episode. And again, he was a nothing character in the movie and in the comic as well, the original comic. But this one, he is like the big bad almost. He's like the overarching villain of the whole thing. And so I just love getting to spend more time with all these characters. And another episode of No Scott Pilgrim, Shaw.
I know.
This whole thing is called Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, and there's no Scott.
Maybe he takes off for most of the season.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. So anything else on this one, Shaw, on this episode?
On this episode, I think that pretty much covers it. I thought the romance between Wallace and Todd was such a standout, funny moment for the show. And everything about it was great. It just continued to the pacing was good. You know, it's interesting for like an 8 episode, 24 minute per episode season. Nothing really feels like filler. Like they do feel like they're progressing along in an organic way. Like Ramona has to do her due diligence to try to solve this mystery, the mystery of Scott Pilgrim disappearing. And so she's having to like, every episode is sort of like getting closer and closer to the truth. And by episode 6 that we're about to get into, we do find out many more nuggets on that. We don't have everything figured out by the end of 6, but we definitely know more. So now we figure out who did it, who done it.
Yeah. So that is the title of episode 6. Who did it? So this one is a very good episode, Shaw. What do you think about Who Did It?
Who Did It is fun. I especially love the bromance between Gideon Graves, aka Gordon Goose, and Lucas Lee, aka Luke Lee.
Yes. He is my favorite character of this whole thing. Not to spoil the rest of the episodes, the 2 episodes. Yeah, Lucas Lee is my favorite. Like I loved Chris Evans in the movie, but this just gave him more, just more to expand upon it. And we talked about my favorite episode of this whole thing was whatever. So I'm loving Lucas Lee.
Because this is my United States of whatever. I really loved the continuation of the no fear t-shirt joke. That he's wearing a tank top that says no fear in it. And by the end of it, Lucas Lee is also wearing a no fear shirt. Just really good stuff. They called him fearless because he wore no fear shirts.
Yes.
I gotta specifically remember the no fear shirt I had. I wore more than any of the other no fear shirts. It said, "If you're not living on the edge, then you're taking up too much space."
Oh yeah.
And I was like,
I was also a huge no fear guy when I was a kid. That was one of my favorite shirts. Like, oh, there's a clever no fear shirt. I gotta get it. I was in elementary school when that came out.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I moved to Arizona from Illinois for the start of 6th grade. My parents wanted us to have a chance to be in primary or still in elementary school before we moved over to middle school,
Hmm.
which was sort of like a shared campus at this particular school.
Oh, okay.
Um, so that I had a chance to make friends before moving into middle school and then high school. So got into 6th grade and everybody, like, I was not wearing No Fear shirts when I moved to Arizona. That was not like that trend or whatever hadn't really kicked off in Illinois, but I came to Arizona and everybody was wearing like No Fear, Massimo Stussy,
Dang.
Quicksilver, the whole
Yeah.
shebang. They were all wearing
Billabong.
those shirts.
Yeah.
Billabong,
Yep.
exactly, Billabong.
Yeah.
And so I was
I
like,
remember that.
I want to fit in, just like anybody else. Because at that time, the shirts that we're wearing right now, granted, I couldn't have worn a sex shirt
In
6th
6th grade? Hey!
Jimmy, I'm gonna send you to the principal's office. No, but like if you wore like a geeky shirt, I remember specifically there was a kid in class who would wear X-Men shirts all the time. Big, huge, sprawling X-Men shirts. They would cover like from the sleeves all the way down, like to the hem.
Ooh-wee.
And he would get bullied and picked on every day for it. It was not mainstream at that
What?
time. It was not like well accepted. The MCU didn't exist. There wasn't like
Boo.
it sucked. Getting
What is
bullied
this
for that. So, like,
hellscape you're talking about, Shaw?
what's that?
What is this hellscape you're talking about?
I
I
know,
don't
it's
want to live in
awful.
that
It's called the
era.
90s.
Ah!
It's called the 90s.
Dang.
94 to be exact.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. Shoff, I got to call out the opening of this episode. I said Shoff is going to hate this when he's watching this. It's a straight anime. The whole thing is
Yes.
100% anime. And I was loving it. I was laughing the whole time because it's kind of like a parody almost
Yeah,
of
right.
anime. And I also, for the viewers or the listener out there, I also took Japanese. I lived in Japan for a little bit. So I can pick out words in Japanese that I was like laughing at some of the words and the just that style of anime made me laugh. So when I was watching it, I was like, Shav is not gonna like this.
There was a line where she called him like a baka boy,
Yes.
or
Yeah,
what was
just
that?
Just baka, which means stupid in Japanese,
Okay,
like dumb.
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. I guess I just
That
wrote
made me
through baka
laugh.
to know what she was saying.
I remember a girl in high school calling me baka all the time, and I was like, "That must be cool." And then I realized, oh, she's calling me an idiot the whole time.
Cuts deep.
That is one of my favorite Japanese words of all time. So that just made me laugh when I saw that. But the fact that Lucas Lee and Goose are getting really into this anime and they're getting invested in it. That joke also played really well for me. So
I was
loving that.
I was also super uncomfortable during that like opening scene because of how much they were destroying Julie's house. Like the paintball splatters all over the walls and the coils of the couch just like popping up. I'm like, oh my gosh. I literally wrote down, oh my God, Julie's house. And this was before Julie got home.
She was for 90 minutes.
Yeah. And we weren't sure how much time had passed. And it was like, oh,
like
no,
months.
It's even worse.
Yeah, that was great.
Robot keeps popping back up. I was like, what
the
is
twins
going on
robot?
with this robot. And I gotta say, we're 6 episodes into the season, and we only have 2 more. I'll miss the show. I won't miss the theme song. I do not like the theme song. I cannot tell you how quickly I hit the skip on that.
Oh man!
On episode 6, I tried to sit through it. I was like doing something on the side. I was like, you know what? I'll just let it play out. I couldn't just sit back and be casual about it. I just had to hit skip. I was like, I can't. No, I can't do it.
Well, I gotta. We know that Anamanaguchi, the band that does the theme song, is listening to this. We know that they're watching. So, guys, I'm sorry. Sorry. We know that the work that you do is valued by a lot of people, but not Shaw. But I like it. I like that.
Not me. It's going to take a little bit more than screeching into a microphone.
No,
in another language to satisfy me.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got the bread makes you fat as an appearance in this episode. That was a lot of fun.
Bread makes you fat. What's up with that?
Them working on lyrics. I was like, oh gosh, this is awful. They're like determined to find some sort of like creative, I don't know, like mecca or something. It's
Yes. And that's again just more to do with Wallace Wells. I'm sorry,
yes,
Stephen Stills. Sorry,
yes,
I got
yes. I
the mix
love
up.
exactly. It's kind of like throwing him a bone, like giving him something, but I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. Part of me feels like there is going to be a song that they do like figure out that is like an epic song or something. Because
I'm not spoiling anything.
yeah, I just feel like it's without purpose if there isn't some thing that sort of like is at the peak of their collaboration. So I feel like we're leading to something. I just don't know what it is, if it's a song or if it's a relationship or whatever, but like there's definitely, we're seeing the sprinklings of that development in the background, which will likely lead to something, I would assume, in episode 7 or 8. So we'll see.
Yeah, so
so you're not going to
spoil,
spoil, but that's my guess. That's my guess.
Yes. And then we got some more with Gideon or Goose and Julie.
Yes,
some more of that relationship.
I love their interaction as she was leaving and she said, he's like, I'll miss you. And then she's like, and I'll miss you fucking more.
Yeah. I didn't like Gideon in the movie or in the comic, but I like him here. Like he's got this quality to him. And that actor also, and I'm blanking on his name, but he's been in so many
Jason
movies.
Schwartzman.
Yes, Jason Schwartzman. Love his characterization of that, like the bringing down the veil that he had. You know, he had kind of a wall built up between him and everybody. Now he's kind of like, oh, now he's vulnerable. He's able to be vulnerable. So I like that in this episode. We got to see more of them. And they actually make a really good couple, those two. And again, the Julie Powers, this is something that she was barely in the main stuff. And now she's getting, like, we're getting to see a lot more from her. So I'm gonna sound like a broken record, Shaw. I love getting to expand upon everyone but Scott. And that's what I'm loving about this whole Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, is that every character is getting their moment to shine rather than Scott, which would, it's called Scott Pilgrim. So very, very much loving that expansion of the world and the Scott Pilgrim cast. So more of that.
I'm trying to think. Didn't we like find out either in this episode or the last episode that it's only been like a couple of days?
Yes. And
it's only been like what, 3 days since Scott was killed, right? Like,
yeah.
And it's just wild to me how quickly some of his friends have moved on, especially his sister. This is the first in this episode we see her, his sister again after mostly being absent this entire time.
She's the only one we don't really get an expansion upon. Everybody else
working at the same cafe or whatever, and she's just passing along gossip to Wallace or whatever. And
you're not gonna believe what happened.
Yeah, and it's definitely in alignment with what happens in the movie and stuff. And I haven't read enough of the comics to know for sure if that's also how like their relationship is as well. But it's just funny to me how little his sister cares about him. Like she does not care at all.
Yeah.
So,
and
funny.
I like I said, just I love getting to know these characters. We don't get to know a lot more about his sister, but it is funny to see that. You point out a great point of why don't these people care about him? What is it about Scott? And I will say the very end of this episode is when we get the reveal that Scott is back. The next two, Shuff, just to prepare you, are going to be very Scott centric. Like,
okay,
I'm talking about the entire episodes are 100% Scott. So you're going to get some more Michael Cera in your life, Shuff, if you're not prepared for that. But it's going to be very interesting to see where he's been this whole time, what's been going on. Any standout quotes for this one, Shuff? You always got a quotable.
Well, the ones I've shared about like bread makes you fat, that kind of stuff, but also the scene where Gideon is talking about the one man show that he put on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you know that song that he was singing, but I recognized it right away. So I wanted to provide some insight for maybe
Tell
the
us, Shaw.
listeners or viewers
Tell
that were
us.
watching it and were like, what is he doing? What is this?
Yeah.
So he's singing a song called Agony, which is from the musical Into the Woods, which is a musical
seen that
version
movie.
of like all of the, you know, fairy tales
Yeah.
and stuff like Little Red
I remember
Riding
that movie.
Hood and Jack and the Beanstalk and
Mhm.
Cinderella and all those, you know, tales that you grew up
Right,
with,
like
right?
the Grimm fairy tales.
Yes, but the show takes it to a darker place. So it's what happens after they get their happily ever after. Like it's sort of the idea of it's not just because you got your happy ending doesn't mean that what comes next is going to be equally happy. And so it's them sort of realizing some darker truths about life and this or that. But the song that he's singing is actually a duet between both of the princes of the show, Prince Charming and then Rapunzel's prince. He doesn't have a name, he's just called Rapunzel's prince. But both of them are singing, pining after their princesses that they want. And it's a funny song because they're both very Gaston-esque in their like approach,
Yes.
but in like a parody of themselves. So they're like making fun of themselves in how they do it. And Chris Pine is excellent in the movie version of it as Cinderella's prince. And I forget the gentleman, Billy Rasmussen or whatever, however you pronounce his last name. He did Rapunzel's prince, and he was great too. But I was in that show. I did it in community theater, and I played Prince Charming's like steward, which for like a night, you know, you have like his assistant, and they're called like a steward or a squire. And the director had a vision of making the squire be very emo goth punk. So you see my beard is like white, right? Like it's white, gray, like there's a little bit of brown. All right, my hair is messy, but like it's brown with white. I dyed everything black. Eyebrows, hair, mustache, beard, everything was jet black. And I did it for a month and a half. And I had a day job. I worked at American Express. and I was
I'm imagining Shaw
flicking the hair down. I had like a fake lip ring that I wore. Like,
oh wow.
I had black nail polish I put on for the character. I was wearing pleather and sweating profusely. I was wearing a mesh tank top with like suspend. It was a sight. It was a sight. It was a really unique vision, but it was very funny. And I, of course, talked like this. And there was lots of pinkies up in the air. And
we're discovering so much about Shaw right now.
Agony. I was thinking about Into the Woods and thinking about playing an emo squire, and it was a good memory. So thank you so much for that, Gideon Graves.
Memories. Nice. Yeah, that was fantastic. And like I said, just getting more Goose, getting more Gideon, getting to know more of his backstory. And I think the bromance was my favorite part of who did it.
Oh yeah, that
was the Lucas Lee and Gideon's thing. Man, Shaw, I am so excited to see what you're gonna think of these last 2 episodes and how they wrap this up. There's some great stuff coming in the next 2 episodes, so I'm very happy. It's very pleased that you're joining me on this journey, Shaw.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. And I don't know, I would have eventually watched this, but I probably wouldn't have watched it right away. And so I'm glad that this podcast has given me the opportunity to watch it much more like in line with when it came out, so I can fully appreciate it in the moment with you.
Yeah, excellent. And I'm glad that you're here. I'm talking to you, whoever's listening or watching this, for this journey into Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. We're going to continue on episodes 7 and 8 as we come up on the close of this whole series. But we are thankful that you are here. And if you want to be thankful to us here in the Vactor-Verse, you can always give us a like, a comment, and a share. Let your friends know if they're into Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, or if they're not into Scott Pilgrim, maybe this will get them into Scott Pilgrim. But also, we have the little super thanks down below. You can donate something to give back to the Vactor-Verse, and then we can put it into the podcast and make a better show for you. So thank you very much. We'll be back next episode. But Shaw, you always got a closing. So what is it this week? Tell us, Shaw. Tell us.
Oh man.
That's the closing. I'm not ready, and you shouldn't be either.
Yeah. I'm gonna go buy a No Fear shirt on Amazon, and you should too.